Okay, we call this budget retreat to order. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to start out with the capital improvement plan, and then we will go back to the discussion topics of last night.
You want to do a roll call?
Roll call, please. Thank you.
Mayor Truitt,
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson, Councilmember Alton, Councilmember Villanueva,
Here.
Councilmember Hall,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Councilmember Longabaugh.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Mayor Truitt, members of the council. We'll get right into the overview of the capital projects for fiscal year 2010. First project, City Hall Solar Project, $812,000 project. The total budget is $812,000 as well. The federal funding that we're receiving is from an energy efficiency block grant, part of the stimulus package that came out from the federal government. This will be putting solar panels on the parking garage at the new City Hall. The next project is the police communications upgrade. The fiscal year 2010 amount of $745,800 is added to money that was approved this year by council. The total project of $1,031,800 includes funding that we're receiving from El Mirage we received this year. The rest of the funds will be coming from the Police Development Fee Fund, the impact fees for police. A park and ride, the fiscal year 2010 amount of $2 million, a total project of 4.5. This again is federal funding that had been received last fiscal year. This is the second half of that funding for a total of $4.5 million. Bell Road pavement, $2.9 million. Again, federal stimulus money has been received for this project. The total remaining of this project is $5 million. The total project is 12.5, 7.5 of which has already been spent on the first three phases. The intersection of Dysart Road and Thunderbird, fiscal year 2010, recommendation of an additional $1 million. Total project of $2.3 million. The source of funding will be the transportation improvement tax. This would be a payment to the city of El Mirage for the improvements there. Greenway Road, Litchfield Road to Bullard Avenue. The fiscal year 2010 amount of $1 million. A total project of $2.7 million with the second half of the funding coming in fiscal year 11. Source of funding is the transportation improvement tax. Two additional Greenway Road projects from Grand Avenue to Sunny Lane and then from Sunny Lane to Dysart Road. The Grand Avenue to Sunny Lane stretch, $435,000. The Sunny Lane to Dysart, $633,700. Both of them are sourced from the transportation improvement tax. Union Hills widening, 111th Avenue to 115th. Additional funding for fiscal year 10 recommended at $635,000 to finish that project. The total budget is $751,600. The source of funds is the transportation improvement tax. We've also received funding from the county and from the city of Peoria for this project. Arsenic treatment, $500,000, another federal stimulus amount that we received. Total project will be $500,000. CAP allocation, Central Arizona project. It's the canal that brings water to us. We have to pay a debt service payment for the construction of that in order for us to keep our allocation in the canal. We have the water development, the impact fees from water pay for that debt service of $576,000 per year. Groundwater savings facility project of $525,000 recommended for fiscal year 2010. Total project of $780,000. When we spoke yesterday of one of the increases in the water operations fund of our having to replenish our CAP allocation, pump that back into the ground, if we put this groundwater savings facility project in place, we wouldn't have to make that payment to somebody else to pump water into the ground. We'd be able to pump our own reclaimed water from the south plant into the ground using a groundwater savings facility. And finally, the SPA 2 163rd Avenue Sanitary Sewer Interceptor. Total project of $3.2 million. An additional $1 million is recommended to be added this fiscal year. The $1 million is all in developer contributions. The original 2.2 is from the Sewer Operations Fund. And that is all of the projects that are recommended for fiscal year 2010. Any questions?
I just moved lunch from 12 to 11. I think we're going to have to call them back and make it about 9:30. So that's going to go pretty fast. Is there any questions?
Yeah, just a question on Greenway from Grand Avenue to Sunny Lane, from Sunny Lane to Dysart. The way it's laid out, and I talked to Randy, we talked about that project. It seems like the residents if we put 2 lanes on the north side, we're going to lose our parking.
Right.
And then actually, it's a safety hazard that I'm concerned about. You're going to be stepping off the curb, and you're going to be right in traffic. And sometimes when you're backing out of your driveway, you use that to fall back in because there's traffic coming in. And once you put 2 lanes there, we're going to lose that. And I know we get quite a few complaints because of the 1 lane going west. And that seems to slow the traffic down. The speed limit there is 25 miles per hour. The average speed is 39 miles an hour the way it's set. So I can imagine what it's going to do after you put 2 lanes in there. And it's going to be interesting to see how you're going to design from Sunny Lane to Dysart, because right now, as it stands, those people, the last 4 houses, they step off the curb and they're in traffic. And I don't know where you're going to get your other lane. Randy suggested some things to see what we could do, so I'm interested to see how you're going to design that.
I think this is a good, good policy decision. I can provide some additional insight at this point. Clearly, it hadn't been done yet. It's a balance between, the benefit to the neighborhood or the detriment to the neighborhood against the importance to the total transportation grid. And as a policy decision, council's got to decide what's the best. From a transportation perspective, transportation said this was the #1 priority to move traffic within the city. Councilmember Villanueva is 100% correct. I asked John Abram to look for me at the possibility of just cutting it from what I call 5 lanes to 4 lanes. And using the center, eliminating the center turn lane, that will handle about 85% of the traffic as a rule as a 5-lane section. The benefit to the 5-lane section is that the 5-lane section will, the people that want to turn left stack in the middle, and so they don't have to wait. If you have a 4-lane section and somebody's turning left, it shuts down 1 lane. The one challenge out there, however, looking at Mr. Abrams' analysis, the mobile home park that's out there, because there are about 60 mobile homes in that particular park. Okay, so there are a number of turning movements that are going in there. There are also a number of turning movements going in the school. Councilmember Villanueva is right. The city owns all the right-of-way. By the way, we currently have that in the public domain, so we wouldn't need any right-of-way based upon John's analysis. But at the corner, he's right. If we widen that, it's going to be extremely tight for those particular residents that are down at that particular corner, and there's not a whole lot that can be done because we discussed that there are utility easements and there are utilities down there that just frankly can't be located. So I think it's a question of balancing this until, we spend a little bit of money and get a better design. We can come back and give you the options if you want options, but I believe that any of the options that would come forward would eliminate the parking. So if that's a consideration that you don't want to do, then you may want to consider moving this money to another project. I think we have Dr. Mackey here. Dr. Mackey, you have anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, Dr. Abraham and staff did an evaluation and come up with some alternatives that weren't very desirable. So I think that would be a good suggestion, that we would maybe substitute another project in here. Perhaps I was thinking of Bullard south of Bell would be a good substitution for this, and that would give us more time to evaluate this project more thoroughly. When we ranked these projects, this was an arterial capacity project. When we ranked all these, we ranked them with strictly objective criteria with the best information that we had. Now that we're seeing, once we get closer to the actual construction, that we have some complications, I think it may be a good idea to defer this, substitute another priority job, and then let us work through these issues.
Mr. Villanueva, is that what you're requesting?
Yes.
I like the substitute, by the way. Bullard Road, south of Bell.
Okay.
That's a.
Are they about the same dollars?
I'm not sure exactly. It sounds about right.
Oh, yeah.
I think that sounds in the neighborhood.
Great, yeah.
Okay, then let's do that. Are we in agreement on that one? Okay.
Cost-wise, that's no problem. They're about the same, so.
Okay.
I just had a question related to Greenway and Dysart and Thunderbird. We voted on that last meeting, and I'm in favor of that improvement. I lived on that northwest corner at Dysart and Thunderbird, and as the stoplight was put in, that intersection has improved over time. But I want to see that move forward. But at the same time, we had discussed some concerns with that intersection too, and the reliability that I don't know if that's the right word, but if that were not to be completed, I'd like staff to keep a close eye on that, working with the city of El Mirage, because as we can see, that $2.3 million can be utilized elsewhere. And if there's any inkling that project will not get done, Greenway has to be a priority, and not necessarily where Councilman Villanueva was talking about, but from Litchfield to Dysart and in other areas, Bullard, wherever, Civic Center Drive. We've got other issues with transportation. Mark Coronado said it yesterday. If we want to improve anything, we got to take care of transportation. So I want to see that intersection done. I think it's a priority. It's a priority for the residents there. I get complaints about that intersection, but at the same time, if reality is it's not going to be paid for, I'd like staff to keep us apprised on that, and we could allocate those funds elsewhere.
The first drop dead date on that agreement, and remember, the agreement's subject to council budgeting the additional $1 million. If that doesn't occur, the agreement dies. The first drop dead date for the city of El Mirage is October the 1st of this year. If they don't have all the right-of-way, the agreement automatically terminates. From what they've told us within the last week or two, they expect that. I understand from the city attorney, however, that there is litigation that they're involved in on one of the sites adjacent to it.
Okay, so that we're talking $2.3 million on that project?
That's 2.3. 1.3 was the amount that was originally budgeted, and $1 million additional for a total of 2.3.
Okay, so what I heard Mr. Williams say is that if it appears that we're not going to get, that El Mirage is not going to perform, then we want to move 2.3 to a different project, and I think we're talking about Greenway from Litchfield to Bullard. And we recognize that there's some issues working with the developer. We're going to have to figure, we're going to have to see what we can do to work that out. If we can't work it out because we're not willing to give our residents money away, we can't work it out, then we'll move it to a different project.
Well, I would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but they approved from Litchfield to Civic Center Drive for a project that they have to go to 4 lanes on that section in return for and the condition was this, that they're going to be building what they proposed is to build a 25,000 square foot building as a Veterans Administration clinic. What the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimously was that if they start a second building, the later of when they start a second building, or 3 years from the date of this approval, which was the 28th, that they have to complete the section from Litchfield to Civic Center Drive. So they've got 3 years from that date, or if they start a second building before that time, that would escalate the date.
Right, but for the purpose of full disclosure, we've already heard from a principal in that project that says it ain't going to happen. They can't afford it, so we'll see. Anything else?
I've got a couple things. Could you explain on page 209 the Municipal Property Corporation? Could you explain how that works, Jared?
I can try.
Okay.
The Municipal Property Corporation, that was created when we went out for debt for the stadium, for the expansion of the water reclamation facility, for a portion of the public safety building. The way the mechanism works is that corporation is created. They bond for the infrastructure. Technically, they own the infrastructure, and they charge the city rent payments. You'll see that as debt service from
Okay, that's the debt service. Okay.
that comes from, actually, that there are rent payments that come from each of the impact fee funds, some from the general fund as well, that goes to the Municipal Property Corporation, and they technically
That's
pay
the
the
revenue
debt.
line.
That's correct. The revenue line you see are rent payments that are coming from each of the impact fee funds. For instance, Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Fund pays for the stadium portion. Sewer would pay for the sewer plant expansions, that type of stuff.
Okay. Okay. And they equalize each other.
That's correct. That
Okay.
is correct.
All right. The Herd Museum, we put that out to 2015. Can we explain that, or is there any? What are we doing there, Randy, on the herd?
This was something that's just been carried in the budget in the past. It was on the bond committee thing. There was some desire by previous councils to expand the presence of the herd. I know the mayor and I talked with representatives of the herd. They expressed some desire to, if they wanted to be successful, that there needed to be some expansion done on that particular site at some point. And what they talked about was some kind of a planning horizon of 10 years with a 10-year partnership with the city. I don't know if you'd like to say anything more about that, Mayor.
Only that when I brought up funding and the lack of it, they said they weren't there to talk about funding. They were just there to talk about long-term sustainability. And I think, quite frankly, they're coming to a conclusion that if they can't get a 10-year plan in place, they probably aren't going to be sustainable and will
I see.
have to do other things. So
Okay.
it's going to be a topic, I think, for another day.
Okay. Let's see, the Bell Road landscaping on page 212. Okay, it says Bell Road landscaping lighting, prior years, $1,208,900. In other words, where was that money spent?
Has not been spent yet. You approved a contract,
okay.
if you recall, for an entry sign and some decorative treatments to the bridge.
Right.
There are two additional pieces, and we didn't want to award those pieces till we had this discussion in light of the fact that there's all this stimulus money that's coming about. But the two additional pieces that will use all those funds would be for street lighting down that particular corridor, and then landscaping, and that would actually only cover a portion of that. Jeff Mihalik can tell you what portion, if you're interested in which portion.
Yeah,
that
no,
is.
so that isn't money spent, that's just money allocated, so.
Been allocated. The only thing that's under contract at this point is the entry sign and the bridge
Yeah.
treatments.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you for that. On the Union Hill widening, are we going to be able to put a golf cart path in?
The plans are 90% complete, and we plan on going to construction in about 4 months. That's the good news. But I do not believe we're going to be able to get a golf cart path in there.
No?
No. But we will have sidewalk, and we're trying to fit a bike lane in.
Trying to fit a bike lane, okay. Okay, that's too bad. You explained the groundwater facility project, that, okay, and the 163rd Interceptor is reimbursable from the development group, right?
That is correct. In fact, it's not reimbursable. They're going to pay us
Okay,
immediately.
And those monies are either on deposit or guaranteed through letters of credit.
okay. The federal funding in 2011, congestion mitigation on page 257, in the amount of $1 million. Why was that displaced to 2015?
Yep, was that 257?
257, yeah. Or is that the last sentence? This project is federally funded under congested mitigation air quality in the amount of $1 million for 2011. Why did we move that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have this book, but I see here, yeah, this is, the timing is predicated by MAG. And even though it shows in this particular budget book that it's pushed out, when we get closer to the year that it actually will be constructed, we'll pull it back into the budget.
Okay.
Maybe Jared can explain.
At this time, that funding isn't guaranteed, so
So you just took it out of the horizon until...
that's correct. And when the funding becomes more clear, we'll put it back into the plan wherever the funding is going to be available at.
Okay, good. Thank you. On page 259, aesthetic enhancement of Grand Avenue. It says it's an 18-month project by ADOT. What are we? Is that the same kind of answer? We just haven't really got a fix on it, so we pushed it out because we should really be doing the work while they're.
Well, in a perfect world, I agree with you. This is set for additional council discussions at a workshop coming up, but the work on Grand is scheduled to start, I think it's November, December of this year. It will take 20 months to complete. It is a federal stimulus package. What we're going to be bringing to you is, what essentially 3 levels of treatment. ADOT has a minimum level that they will provide.
Right.
And then we will provide some alternates to see what you have some interest in. If the funds were available, it would be optimum to do everything at one time. Unfortunately, funds aren't available for that, and it becomes a question of how do we trade certain things off, and that's one of the reasons that we've held up on the bell lighting, because it may be a case, and I want to have this workshop first, it may be a case that certain improvements that we need to do on Grand, such as conduit for this or irrigation for that, things that you can't come back and easily do later, we need to do as part of the construction that we may want to take money away from another project temporarily. But that'll be a decision that'll be made at a subsequent workshop when we discuss that. To come back at a later date and put landscaping in is no additional cost to speak of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's the running the lines that.
It's running the electric, the water, and if you need, conduit for some other purposes. Those are the things that you really can't cost effectively do later.
Right. Okay.
I think the work on Grand actually starts, I believe, at 83rd Avenue.
It does. I don't know if we know the sequence yet, Bob, where they're going to sequence. If they're going to start at 83rd and come to 303, they're going to start at multiple points.
No, we don't know. We probably won't know until the contract is awarded and the contractor to schedule it.
Okay.
My guess is if I were them, I'd be working on the 101 bridge first because that's going to be the longest lead item.
On page 263, the sidewalk enhancement, pedestrian mobility. That's a lot of words, isn't it? Sidewalk enhancement, pedestrian. Anyway, didn't Jeff Mihalik, didn't you do a gap study where we needed sidewalks where people were walking on dirt and whatever? That's part of it. That doesn't, that just seems like a basic to me to get done in a city where people can walk. I see people walking along on Bell Avenue and they're walking in the dirt. And I'm thinking, geez, we can do better than that. And we pushed that out to 2015. It's $150,000. It just seems.
It's a matter of prioritizing funding. I mean,
I don't know how you guys feel, but I mean, to me, I feel ashamed when I see people walking on the dirt on Bell Road going on the east side of Grand. It just, I think we ought to fix it, frankly, but.
if you want, we can, take it out of we can delay a transportation project and move this up to the extent that we got funds. I mean, that, again, it's balancing based on revenue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's, I would like to take a look at it. I just think I think the more we can get people to ride their golf cart, ride their bike, and walk, the better. That's my feeling.
Just a quick comment on that. I think that there's other spots around the city that the sidewalk ends and you've got maybe a 30-foot gap where there's nothing there. I'd like to see staff come back to us and kind of take a look at some of those areas. An example of that is Greenway and the 303. Another example we're working on is Reams Road, where you can't. There's a Rancho Gabriela residential area where you can walk on the rocks to that Coles. It's not pedestrian friendly.
Right.
So I know there's a lot of different areas like that, incompleted medians, things like that, that I know staff is working on. I'd like to see some of those improved myself too.
Okay.
Mayor, Mr. Hall, and Councilman Williams, the Reams Road situation, sidewalk should be taken care of as part of this current project. We added it in at the last minute.
Oh, good.
However, Mr. Sandstrom asked me to talk briefly about the Grand Avenue. We've submitted at least twice for enhancement funds for Grand Avenue sidewalk. The dilemma we're in is that there's a group at MAG that thinks that ADOT ought to be responsible for sidewalk on their own road, and ADOT says they have money for capacity but not for sidewalk, so they think it should be paid for with enhancements. The particular $150,000 that was in this budget was mainly meant for some spots, but it wasn't meant to handle all of the gaps. So I think a prudent course of action, considering the budget situation, is for us to go back and look at the whole section again and come back to you with a proposal and also working with enhancements and with ADOT to try and complete the whole section, because I agree, it is a bad situation. We have a lot of people that want to walk along on US 60.
Right. And then secondarily, just as an aside, Doctor, once they put the sidewalk in, they're supposed to remove the weeds. I mean, the weeds are growing up through don't they have a crew to take care of that?
I think that was a rhetorical question. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm just pointing it out. Anyway, that's all.
Call up
I
your
got.
state senator, Skip.
Yeah.
I'll give you his name.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, I think that completes that portion. Just for point of clarification, the one project is going to be moved to Bullard, south of Bell. What was that project, Mr. Villanueva? It was
actually two projects, is it? It's the Greenway Grand Avenue to Sunny Lane, and then from Sunny Lane to Dysart, those two projects.
Okay. That takes us back to the discussion continuing from last night. Mr. Oliver.
Jared,
Sure.
I had asked you and you answered my question, but just to answer everybody else for you to answer it. I saw $65,000 for one-time personal protective equipment, PPE. I said for $65,000 it was pretty inexpensive to me that the officers want some protective gear. Can you tell me tell everybody what you told me about how we're handling that and getting them that protective gear?
Sure, Vice Mayor. What we've done is we were working with the staff over at police, looked at their budget. They had a line item in there, $129,000 for electricity. They were paying for electricity at the modular buildings, and then when they moved to the new public safety building, they were paying for electricity there as well. What we've done is all of the charges associated with electricity have been moved over to Public Works. The facilities division will be paying for electricity at the public safety building for the police department, for the fire department, and for courts as well. What we've done is we've left $100,000 in their electricity line item that they can spread into the rest of their budget to make up for some of the other shortfalls for the items that weren't recommended, including fuel, including the PPE stuff, that kind of stuff. So we've left $100,000 in their budget, and we've moved those expenditures over to facilities so they can use that $100,000 for other purposes.
Thank you.
You said fuel?
Fuel? Yes.
We weren't giving them enough fuel?
No, just for an increase. They were asking for an increase in fuel due to cost and also because they have more cars on the road. They're driving more miles. So an expected increase in fuel was also calculated with that $100,000 too.
If in fact it was an item that should be looked at, Councilman Johnson, I think that we ought to look at it maybe at this time and leave the $100,000 that they would have for other things. But if this is, what kind of equipment is this?
I believe in the chiefs here, I believe this can also come out of drug seizure money. Isn't it an eligible drug seizure?
We have looked at drug seizure money. The problem being now is that money has dried up, and now it's more, the grants are more for interoperability. The PPEs consist of the mask, all of the things for first responders, the masks, the filters, gloves. It's OSHA. It's something each one has to have. We had enough through the first grant to get most of the people that we had on the PD covered. But as we've added people, and now, of course, there's dates and it's expired, so now we have to go forward and make sure that every officer has that PPE equipment. And Randy's right, as money does come in, we can try and use drug money for it. But what we're trying to do is get them all of the equipment they need right now.
Right. I totally agree. I'm thinking let's put that down as a credit, on the credit side, that we need to look at it this weekend as to how we could pay for it by some other cuts.
You have 100.
Okay, can I get a little clarification on that? My understanding is there's $100,000 available. Are you recommending that 65 of it go for the safety equipment?
No, I'm recommending that 65 come from other sources.
Leave the 100?
Leave the 100.
100 the way it is, just in case they need something down the road that is not necessarily covered in the budget. This we can cover in the budget.
Remember, if they don't use the 100 by the end of this year, it gets swept into fund balance.
At the end of next year.
No, at the end of this year. In other words, any revenues over expenses, as you see on this particular sheet,
Right.
any revenues over expenses as of 6/30 get swept.
They have money now?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we've said. They have money now, so I don't see the
Yeah,
point
you can
in
use it now.
use it now.
Right.
That's what we indicated.
Right.
Is that clear for everybody?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Assuming you pass this out?
Yeah, we passed out the information that was requested last night. Impacts on general fund and other funds from single-family permits to reduce from 450 to 350. It's an adjustment to the operating fund of 260,000. It's an operating adjustment to the one-time capital funds of 336,100. And then some other funds down at the bottom. Again, it depends where the permits show up, so this is a little bit of a guessing game because not all permits have roads of regional significance fees. So that's a little bit of a guessing game on the other funds. If we eliminate the development agreement position, salary and benefits, $118,500. The two CRS employees are $110,000. The pavement preservation program was originally scheduled to be 2.5, and we cut that due to lack of funding. That's a one-time capital. And, as we said yesterday, revenues over expenses, largely depend upon what council does with the, contingency fund. We think that will finish the year at least $800,000 to the good. So that's the top part of this. At the bottom part of this, council asked that the CRA asset replacement, we've got $700,000. The numbers that Mr. Coronata gave for revenue projections in park, and we think these are a little overstated, frankly, based on our budget, but these were the numbers Mr. Coronata indicated yesterday. He indicated that Jared was off about $700,000. He thought it should be $2.2 million versus $1.5. And so what we are doing is proposing to fund that CRS asset replacement out of any fees over $1.5 million. I would note that those funds would not be available, however, until the fees exceeded the $1.5 million.
Right.
One clarification, we got an update from CRS. They're projecting their revenues to be about $345,000 higher than what was in this budget. So this number of $700,000 would be $345,000 based on the CRS projections at this point.
Hi, I have a question regarding payment preservation. Mr. Beckley, may I ask you a few questions? Payment preservation, it's multifaceted, correct? I mean, there's all kinds of things that are going into that.
A number of different treatments, yes.
Right. Is one of them the crack fixing, crack thing?
That's correct.
Do we have our own equipment?
We do, but it's no longer usable because of PM10 emission requirements. So originally the request was to purchase new equipment, but the alternative to that is to use contracted assistance, which we're doing a part of today. But that's preempted because there's no funding. So we really have no means to really address some of these issues in the future with the current budget.
How much would it cost to get that piece of machinery upgraded to a PM10?
Jared, do you have the supplement that we had requested?
I would note, though, Bob, assuming that you have the equipment, because this is a multifaceted decision, do you have the personnel that don't have other things to do that would be using that equipment, or would you need additional personnel?
The personnel is there. If I had a preference, I'd rather do it on a contracted basis.
Okay.
Because of the limited resources we have. But it's just a service that it can be scheduled in a little more effective fashion, coordinating it with the contractor and us supervising the work.
Do you see a continued need
Definitely.
for that? And how much would that, of the $2.5 million, how much of that is in crack mitigation?
We would look at between, just a rough estimate would be between $50,000 to $90,000.
Okay, and that's really actually just put a Band-Aid on it.
That is to do two things: to address critical problems that are brought to our attention from the public, and after we verify it, require immediate attention. And secondly, do the preventative crack or the related crack seal treatment with the improvements that we are able to fund.
Right.
There's two components of that crack sealing.
Okay.
How much was that number?
Okay.
Richard? How much was that?
2.5 million.
How much was that particular item? You
That
said
was
100,000?
190.
How much was that?
That was the crack sealing.
Yeah.
Yeah. and-
Crack sealing, I said between $50,000 and $90,000.
Okay.
But see, crack sealing, the way I see it, is super important. If you don't fix it, then you start undermining the base.
Water gets
correct?
underneath.
It's keeping the water out of the subgrade and
Yeah.
preventing further degradation of the pavement
Yeah.
structure.
So it's I think
Doesn't
that's-
really fix it.
No.
It kind of puts a sealer on it to
Right.
prevent further breakup
right.
or
And,
accelerated breakup.
So crack sealing to me is super important throughout the city.
It's still our recommendation that we take revenues that exceed expenses by that amount and put into pavement preservation. We're focusing on crack sealing, which I agree is important, but equally important is slurry seal on the surface.
Yeah.
Because it's the slurry seal on the surface that makes it so the surface doesn't degrade. So it's still our continued recommendation that revenues in excess of expenses from 09 go into pavement preservation.
One thing about the slurry, I would ask that staff has a predominant role in the quality, because we'd had some issues last year as to the looks of it afterwards. It looked worse than it did before. So anytime that the staff can oversee the project and put in the contract some quality control, I would appreciate it.
We, in addition to those measures that will be taken, we learned some things as far as application types of treatments, roads that best suit that particular method. So I think we'll be able to address that in the future.
Great, thank you.
Randy, revenue exceeding expectation includes whatever's in the council contingency?
Well, at the end of the year, what happens is that it's like when you have a paycheck and whatever you have left over at the end of the week essentially gets transferred into your savings account. It's
Okay,
a one-time revenue.
Is our council contingency in that paycheck?
Yep, it is. The council contingency does not roll over from year to year.
Okay, and you're still estimating that to be between 800,000
We think it'll be
and
between
1.2?
800,000 and 1.2 million. Part of that's going to depend upon how much of the council contingency fund is spent.
Okay, so you're saying that we could apply between 800 and 1.2 to pavement preservation?
Yeah, and if you want, however, if you want to reduce the number of single-family permits by 100, you would reduce that amount by the 336,100.
Well, I think part of this council's desire last night was to find some other ways to cut the budget. And
Well,
part
that's
of
why
that-
we broke it into capital and operating.
Yeah, and part of that is in the position efficiencies.
And we gave you all of the management positions in the next two sheets for organization. This was previously distributed a couple of weeks ago, but this is the same thing again. Please note that in the itemized listing, those numbers include benefits. These numbers do not include benefits that are here. These are just straight salary figures. And the benefits on this, because as the salary increases, the benefit multiplier goes down slightly. They would range from about 24 to 28% as a general rule.
If I'm understanding this correctly, the only position that you've eliminated for this coming year's budget is deputy city manager.
We eliminated that position. We also eliminated the one that we previously transferred over to community services.
That was never a position to begin with.
No, it was a director position originally.
Oh, then help me understand, which one did we transfer to community?
The director of community initiatives
okay,
was
not
transferred over, and that position has subsequently been abolished.
Okay, so there's two.
That's been abolished. Yeah, that's been abolished.
Okay, so tell me how we're
The
going to...
shaded boxes here are positions that have either been abolished or downgraded to non-management positions.
Okay. I passed out this sheet that did a survey of the assistant city managers, deputies for different cities in our
I
area.
haven't seen the sheet.
Oh, it should have been at every... And this even is outdated because having talked to some of my counterparts in other communities, my understanding is even this sheet is being reduced in at least two other communities, not counting Scottsdale, which is eliminated all ACMs. And so going back to the discussion of last night where we talked about reducing what we believe is the top heaviness in this organization and making sure that we keep the workers on the streets, taking care of our streets and our parks. How can we accomplish that?
That's up to you. I think, in my opinion, that I personally think that what the gentleman did in Scottsdale makes no sense. And the reason that I say that is under his philosophy, he originally had 3 ACMs, or assistant city managers, with an organization of 2,200. He created a department of, and let me get my book here, he created a department of, which I don't really have any, the naming's kind of interesting, but the concept's not bad, but he created a strategic resources group, took one of those 3 assistants and put him in charge of the strategic resources group, and then put government relations and public affairs and what I call strategic planning in that particular group. And that's done, called a little something different in big organizations. then what his philosophy calls for is that on a rotating basis, 2 of the department directors come up and are acting assistant city managers for 1 year. Nobody in their organization, they don't replace anybody, they just have whoever the number 2 is move up. So what could happen is 1 year the police department may supervise the fire department, somebody in transportation may supervise somebody else, and it's my experience that just to know the breadth and the depth of experience that it takes at least 6 to 12 months to understand how the various components work. But that's your all's call. I think that from a quality control, we've gone from 3 to 2, and I think that's an appropriate number to maintain quality control, because you need to remember that all the agenda items need to be reviewed, and frankly, I don't look at all the agenda items. I look at part of them, the ones that I think are problematic, but I don't have the time to look at them all and to know the details of all of them.
Well, I'm looking at this sheet, and I see Tempe, population 165, they've got 1 ACM. Gilbert, I understand, is currently has 2, but they're talking about going to 1, and they have a population of, they have 175, and Tempe's 165. And then looking at Tucson, population 600,000, they've got 2 for 600,000 people and 1 DCM. 600,000, we're at 110, which is pretty close to, let's see, Peoria's 140 with no ACMs.
But they have 3 DCMs, and those titles, candidly, are very interchangeable.
But all the communities around us are in the process of reducing the number of their upper management. And I'm concerned that if we don't take those steps at this time, that we could potentially jeopardize the workers on the street that are taking care of our community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my thoughts. If council has any.
And they've combined some departments to run more efficiently that they feel are pretty closely related. And they've done that. And I know the city in the past, we've all lived here, especially Roy, some of the divisions now are separated that used to be together. So that's what's being focused on, too, in other cities. They're combining departments and eliminating that director position. I know that's happening.
Well, if you recall, we eliminated Community Initiatives Department completely. The same thing with the Department Director for Management and Budget.
You're suggesting we need 2 ACMs to put together the agenda?
Now, you need 2 ACMs to provide the property quality control for the organization. Absent those positions, it's my opinion that the quality control will suffer, and I think in the long run it will create some problems.
Why don't we find out?
Just before, excuse me.
That's all right.
I agree with Randy. I feel that if our city manager feels he needs these tools to operate, I agree with him, and I'm taking his word for it. This is what he needs to operate, and I feel that we should keep these positions.
I have a thought as to a further consolidation. The business economic development for the city, I think, is very closely related to what we do at Parks and Rec and the sponsorships and bringing new people into the city. I think that we can combine the two and not necessarily having lose the economic development name, but I think that one director can handle both of the activities, and would be closer. It would be put together closer because I know that Parks and Rec has some great sponsorships, and at the same time, we can use that as a tool for economic development, as well as bringing these sponsorships into the city and have them operate within our city. So that being said, I think we can actually gain some more income.
Why don't we do one thing at a time? I've spoken on the ACMs.
Okay.
Mr. Villanueva's spoken on the ACMs. Is there any more input on the ACMs? You guys happy with two, or do you think we can do it with one, or want to try it with one?
I think, go ahead.
I'll say that I think we ought to, I support Roy. I think we ought to stay where we are.
Okay. Anybody else want to?
Try it with one.
They try it with one.
I'm in agreement. These are tough decisions that we're making right now, but these are the things we have to look at. Like I said yesterday, we're looking at killing 21 employees, and that potentially is going to impact services, and we have to make some tough, hard decisions.
Okay, I believe that's consensus. Mr. Hall, do you want to weigh in?
I'd say try it with one.
Okay. Now we move to Mr. Alton. You're suggesting that we're combining departments now?
Yes, and I'd like to try it.
Okay, are you saying combine departments, or are you saying have one director for two different departments?
Yes.
And you're talking recreation services and economic development?
Yes.
Any thoughts on that, council?
That's apples and oranges to me. I don't see the two. I understand the issue of sponsorship and community activity, but what ED does is go sell our city to business, and that's not sponsorship.
I think that what happens is that we are, through Parks and Rec, we are selling our city to businesses.
But in a different way. I mean, I think the ED department is supposed to be using, business contacts and getting out in the community of commercial industry and try to get them to come to Surprise.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what Mark Coronado's department's doing. They're producing shows, ball games, tennis matches, things of that sort, and I don't see that being the same. That's apples and oranges to me.
Oh,
Sorry.
I don't agree, but
Anybody else? Mr. Villanueva?
Well, will he be able to handle the Parks and Recreation and Economic Development? I can see where he might have some input because of, like Richard said, that he's the contacts, but as far as having him take over the department, I don't see how he can handle that and handle both of them.
Okay, and before we go there, it would not be appropriate to ask him, okay? So we're going to have to figure out here in this discussion whether we think he can handle it. Mr. Villanueva
I
is saying
think
no.
he can handle it completely. Just take it completely over.
Through the chair. One thing the Scottsdale city manager did say that I think all of us agree and all of our citizens agree. He said it's about time that he put his stock in his personnel that he has when he did all these cuts and these. He said it's about time. Pretty much they started stepping to the plate, and he had confidence in them. I know what Mark's done at Community and Rec Services. We all know what he's done. He's done, in my opinion, a very good job. Yes. They are closely related. I agree with Richard. Economic development, to get people here, have to sell this city. They've got to be a salesman. They've got to close deals. There's nobody in the city better than selling the city and closing a deal than Mr. Coronado. Bottom line. So they are closely related. That is part of economic development. That's part of getting people here. So I don't know. I think he can handle both. I don't know if he can do it long term or if he's interested in doing it long term, but I know he can handle both, I would think, in the short term to get us through this economic time. I think he could do it, and I think that's just my opinion, guys.
The question on clarification on this, are we looking to eliminate that entire department? I mean, what are we looking, just shifting that over under a different direction? Okay.
Are you suggesting the salary that frees up, are you suggesting then bring back 2 more employees?
no,
No?
I'm saying that
Just
that
make
frees
sure
up
that
some
we're-
salary.
Okay.
And I think, Mr. Coronado has got some great division directors underneath him, division managers. I think they probably can step up to a little bit greater responsibility. I would hate to see Mr. Coronado give up baseball and tennis, but I think he can certainly have some great input as to how to reorganize and how to train the staff in our economic development.
Okay, here's let me express a couple concerns. And this would be true for the previous discussion as well. is what I understand is that we're going to go to one ACM and we're going to try it for at least one budget year. And if it's too cumbersome, Mr. Oliver needs more help, then we're going to figure out how to make that happen. There's a couple things at stake in this discussion. One is we have a really, really good person in Mark Coronado, and we don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize his relationship with this city. Okay?
Right.
And if you're suggesting that he direct both economic development, community recreation services, there would have to be some provisos as far as I'm concerned. Is one is it'd have to be a temporary situation, a 1-year trial, and see if that can be done. Two is that if for any reason it didn't work out, Mr. Coronado's current position is assured. Okay, and that would have to be made clear to those who have to step up behind him, because that's what you're asking. Is with as much that goes on just in recreation services, he's going to need his people to step up over there and take care of business. And so they'd have to be pretty much put on notice that this is a trial thing if you guys decide to go there. More input.
Well,
Is that one budget? Is that economic development budget shifted under one, or are we still separating simply under his direction?
yeah. My feeling has a backdrop of philosophy, and that is baseball doesn't pay its way. It's a loser. Okay? It's a loser. And we've already established that the general fund is taking $2 to $2.5 million a year to subsidize it. Okay? So we know that. All right. The reason you have baseball and the reason you have tennis, besides being a nice amenity for the residents, is to build economic development. And we haven't got that third piece. We got a nice tennis facility, we got a nice baseball facility, and Mark's group, and Mark does a great job. But the economic development piece hasn't folded in, and so therefore we haven't been able to create jobs like was the original intent with all this. And so I've got my concern with this with Mark is that I would like, this is my own feeling, I would like him to keep baseball and tennis and have him try economic development, because I think he can close deals. All right? But managing soccer and softball and all the rest of the pieces of Parks and Rec, I think that would be too much for Mark.
Right.
Besides adding economic development, I think it's just it would set him up not to succeed, and we'd want him to succeed. And I totally agree with you that it would have to be with a proviso that would be temporary. I mean, that we'd look at it, and then if it didn't quite work out, or Mark didn't like it, or whatever, he could move back to his current position. That's not at risk. I think that's very important. So,
I mean, with all due respect to Mark, he's a manager and he manages his people. He's got a lot of great people under him. That's why he stood up and defended them yesterday. When John said, "Do we really need these people?" He stood up and defended his staff, because he knows that his staff is a good reason why he's given a lot of credit.
right.
Okay, so he's managing people that are capable. And so I agree. We'll do it and see how it works. But I think you're going to find that he's going to do an awesome job at directing both departments, because that's what he does. He directs people. He puts in people where they get the job done for him, and that's part of managing. So I think you're right. We'll try it. I think he'll do a great job.
I'd like to hear from other counselors, but I'm a little concerned that we've moved into personalities, not positions, gentlemen. And ultimately, I think the city manager makes a decision. If we say we want to combine the direction of two departments under one person,
Right.
I think that's what we say. That's a policy decision. But if we say we want so-and-so over here to be this over there, sorry, that's not our call.
Right.
Okay?
I agree, Mayor. I was going to make that comment. It's got to be more objective. We're saying Mark's name a lot because we recognize the job that he does. But I guess I voiced some concerns, as Councilman Villanueva and the mayor has voiced. I want to make sure that that every department, we're not overworking any one individual or department. And I don't know, it's an interesting idea, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made, but I'm unclear on it right now. I'm not sure.
I'd like to remind you all that in February, he already absorbed one department.
That's gone.
Just remember that he's already in charge of the senior center. He has what's left of the community initiatives department that was given to him in February in the reorg we did then. So if you're talking about a department that's absorbed another department, it's already done that just 4 months ago or 3 months ago.
Randy?
Yeah, just to refresh, and I agree that there's a correlation, and it needs to be a stronger correlation between economic development. But one thing Mark and I did discuss, and everybody agrees, and economic development staff agrees too, is that Mark's taking the lead right now on certain projects. One is a convention center hotel. One is the theme park issue. One is additional restaurants around the stadium to support that particular project, ones that what I call have direct linkage. The issue, however, becomes, is there as much enthusiasm for that industrial project that's going to manufacture whatever from that standpoint? The other thing that I think is a consideration without, getting into a lot of details is we do have somebody that's going to be going out on maternity leave for a period of time, okay, and that's going to further diminish the resources. So,
if he's already doing projects that are economic development, then maybe we should try it for a year and see if one director can handle 2 departments.
my suggestion is that some of you may want to talk to him first and see what his thoughts are.
I'd rather not. But I think the ultimate question is we're looking at economic development is, do we want to eliminate that position? I think that's a budget question.
Let me ask the city manager, give me your opinion on it, on the idea that's been toyed around here.
Well, I think that the idea of putting baseball, tennis, and economic development together makes sense, but I think you need a dedicated resource to economic development that's not swayed by other activities beyond those 3 things. If they can't completely commit 110% to that, and that their passion is in recreation at the end of the day, because the economic development person needs to be committed to that particular function.
Right. And that's my concern.
Okay, and I don't think that we should ask Mark. I think that puts way too much pressure on a given employee, and either we make a policy decision based on organization, what we believe is going to work organizationally, or we don't. And let's move away from the personalities of the thing. And again, if we decide to combine 2 not to keep 2 separate departments, but have 1 director, then that's going to be a city manager decision.
And I would point one further thing out. Remember, whenever you design an organization, don't design the organization around people. Design the organization around functions. The reason that I say that is because I like Mark. I think he does a fantastic job. But, candidly, if Mark gets hit by a truck tomorrow, is it going to carry on that way? Are you going to find another Mark that's going to be able to fill that role?
We're just going to close the doors and lock it behind us. So at any rate, input?
I feel that Mark can be an asset to him. I don't think he needs to take over the department. I think if he can work in combination with economic development, I think it'll work out fine.
So,
Yeah, I tend to agree with that a little bit. I like the idea of from a budget aspect of, again, going back to the same argument from before, is saving that money and maybe saving additional jobs. But I just have some concerns there. I think he's a definite asset, and I think we all agree. But again, getting away from that, I'm unsure right now. I would need, I don't know.
okay. This is a ball that's up in the air, and that's okay, because it will come down. And we don't have, it's, I could stand corrected on this. I don't believe we have to finalize everything today. If we need to come back on one decision later, but, that's a slippery slope. We have to understand that if we're not willing to make a decision today, then that can't be true of the whole budget. It's got to be specific to one item.
Is this an item that could be looked at in 2, 3, 4 months, and let's look at the consolidation a little deeper, and then we can make whatever choice at that time? Does it have to happen now?
Well, it would be appropriate for it to happen now because we're discussing the budget and we're looking at savings. But I don't sense that there's clear consensus on this. I think everybody kind of can see the benefits on both sides. So maybe that means that there is no decision. We don't make changes if we're not certain that the changes need to be made.
The one thing I would point out in response to Councilmember Alton's about making decisions in 2 or 3 months, I mean, waiting a week or two, that's clearly not a problem. And having said that, I've got strong thoughts on the position, but if you push the decision off 2 or 3 months, what you do is you create tremendous instability within the organization, and that's totally destructive.
That's not good.
That's true.
Good point.
I would only support it if it was, and this is a budget thing. I don't know how it would work exactly, but philosophically, I would only support it if it was economic development with tennis and baseball.
Right. And I agree to the same thing.
And that person would need to be located in City Hall
Right.
Clarify.
to be able to do that.
It would be whoever is in charge is going to be in charge of baseball, tennis, and economic development.
Yeah.
With the caveat of if it doesn't work,
I think we're going to find it works. So I would
And
say,
there would
I'd
be
say
a
yes.
I'm sorry, Jim. There would be a different position then to oversee the community rec programs then.
Yes.
Down.
There is managers below. Yeah.
Right.
I would be willing to take a look at that, see how that works.
Have a consensus.
So, you got it.
Okay. We have consensus.
So we will eliminate that position, create then a economic development department that includes baseball, tennis, and economic development, and spin off organizationally Parks and Recs in a different area.
No. How I see the organizational chart is Parks and Rec, and then part of what whomever the director is going to have economic development and have Parks and Rec. However, underneath Parks and Rec are going to be a number of the current managers that are currently in place, and they are responsible for soccer and adult softball and whatever. So I'm just saying that one director is going to oversee both.
Where do you see that director residing? Do you see them residing at Parks and Rec, or do you see them residing at City Hall?
I see them residing at City Hall sometimes, and during the baseball and tennis season, that person may have to reside in Parks and Rec.
Because I am extremely concerned about a director that is going to get involved in day-to-day things of the July 4th event, of all those things, because if they're serving the economic development role, that tennis and baseball need to be their primary focus.
Right.
They don't need to get involved in
But I think
how the
that's why
parks are
there's
maintained or whether the parks are maintained properly.
Right. But I think that's why you have a group of seasoned veterans underneath both organizations that are going to take care of that, take care of the economic development, keep Mark in the flow of economic development. But we got a staff that is very, very good. So it's a matter of I believe it can be done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this org chart. It looks like we have, like, under recreation services, there's considerable number of upper management or what you might call executive management positions. So from a position standpoint, I'm certain that that's a great team over there that they could cover it.
Right.
Mr. Johnson, you had something?
I'm just saying it's just a structural thing, like Randy said. Let's stick to the structural thing. You know, you can look at Bob Beckley's got a huge organizational chart. Can't even fit it on one page. I mean, that's Bob Beckley. He handles a whole bunch, and so you have organizational structures, which Randy was saying. We should get away from personalities. I think economic development and community and rec services can go under one director.
And I think that's already been, I counted a consensus here of four of you that came to that conclusion.
I think
now it's just a matter of the clarification of how it's going to work.
I think this.
It's pretty simple. You leave it up to that. Yeah.
Pardon
I
me?
mean, whoever he puts there, he puts there. But we want those two reporting to the same person.
Okay, and you're suggesting that the questions that Randy have are questions that Randy answers? So as to where,
What we're
the
saying is
location
we're
of-
setting policy, he's going to make it work.
Right. We say we want them under.
I don't think that it will work, but if that's the direction, I'm going to do everything that I can do
You
to
have
try
to be
to
positive.
make it work.
Yeah.
Randy, what you're saying is keep two directors, a Parks and Rec director.
Now, what I would do if you split that off, I would downgrade it. One of the problems that we have had in this organization, and I've been pretty candid with everybody about this, is how all the directors kind of make the same amount of money doesn't make a lot of sense to me because they're varying responsibilities.
Yeah.
What I would see if you split it out the way that I would recommend would be you would have economic development, baseball and tennis together as a department director, and then you would have a lesser department director at a lesser salary
For Parks and Rec.
that would actually manage what I call the day-to-day functions of Parks and Recs.
Okay.
But that's your all's decision.
See, that makes sense to me. That's where my thinking is. That makes sense to me. Just exactly what he said.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Call. That's your call.
Well, again, without bringing personalities into this, is pretty difficult because I'm not convinced that the only person that can do this function, okay, the way this is set up, is comfortable with that.
Okay.
Because I've had those discussions.
Okay, well, we've had a policy, we've had consensus on a policy. So in terms of it working out, what I believe that I said I know, and I believe you guys all are in agreement that if it doesn't work out, then no harm, no foul.
Right.
Well, I guess what I want to try to figure out is because this is a valid policy decision, as a policy decision, do you all want to create two departments like I mentioned to Councilmember Hall, or do you want to create one department as proposed by Councilmember Alton?
Well, it's
Two departments.
Departments reporting to one person.
reporting to one person.
Call it any way you want to, but have two departments reporting to one person.
And if you tell me it can't be done, I challenge it because Bob Beckley is doing, let me see.
They're all
facilities,
related
administrative,
functions.
environmental, customer service, sanitation, utilities, environmental services, fleet management. So if he can manage all those, which he's done pretty well.
I totally agree with that.
I do too. So if he can do all of that, then I don't think we could have a problem combining the two that we're talking about.
How many supervisors does he have under him?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like 11 or 12. Okay.
That's why he's able to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so
well,
the question before,
quite a few too.
the question before us is two departments or one?
I'm for two departments, and the Parks and Rec department being a not a director position. Just exactly what Randy said.
If you're going in that direction, I'll go two departments. I don't like
I'm
the
not,
direction.
I'm just trying to find consensus here.
Two departments with one director.
You don't have.
Where does that fit in? And we're talking it's got to be 2 departments or nothing. I'm just saying 2 departments with 1 director.
Oh, my.
You're going against organizational theory. A department has a director. I don't care if the department's 6 people or 600 people.
What? No.
You've got to have a boss.
Yeah, you do.
And
That
you're
director will
basically
be the boss.
you're trying to create a super agency with 2 departments as part of it, in effect, is what you're doing.
No.
Different than what we've done through the whole organization, John. There's different departments reporting to a department director.
Well, we're still mixing apples and oranges. I'm not convinced that it's going to work, and you're going to kill the golden goose.
Okay.
I like the I know what Councilman Alton and Johnson are talking about. But I've got concerns
Is
about.
it Are we dealing with semantics? It's just words. So call it 2 divisions and 1 director.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's
But
The buck stops
like the mayor,
at the director.
right? But I just don't want to, for the betterment of the city, I don't want anything to suffer. Programming from the rec side, economic development side. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Well,
We can. I'm in agreement that we could. It's just something to look at.
and my comment is still the same. Managers manage people. Okay. Bob Beckley's done a darn good job at managing 11. Mark's got 8. Okay, Roy, he has 8. Bob has 11. So they get their work done by good people underneath them. Now, anybody that says any different, I totally disagree. That's what managers do. He doesn't do, he's not going to do every single thing. He doesn't have the time to do that right now, Roy. So what? I just don't see where we're saying he can't handle it.
The only issue, I mean, for me is, have you ever tried to manage at 2 different levels before in your life, Joe?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he's not doing that.
Very difficult. I've done it before, and it is very difficult. And what I'm thinking is, you're taking economic development is so important to this city,
Right.
and so we want Mark's or the position's effort and passion to be in economic development, and use baseball and tennis to leverage it. That takes a lot of thought and a lot of organization. Blah blah blah. The rest of Parks and Rec for youth services and adult, all those kind of things, is a whole different thing.
Oh, I know.
It really is, in terms of service and the way you think and how it gets driven. Where economic development takes a whole nother kind of skill set, and I'm just afraid that if it's, and I don't know if it's apples and oranges like John says, but it's something like that.
Yeah, but it's just the same thing with public works. Utilities and actually physical roadways, they're two separate entities, but they fall under public works.
Yeah.
So what I thought you said is, yes, you believe it should be under direction of one person, but they're going to be different functions. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what Richard's saying. That's what you're saying. And sure, you don't want things to suffer, but I don't think they will. And the reason why I don't think they will is because if you have a good manager, they get people to do those jobs. And I think we have department heads who prove that they can manage. If they're like functions, then we combine them. If you don't think so, then we don't. Pretty simple.
So, actually, I wasn't saying that. John said 2 divisions, 1 director. Is that where we're at?
Yes, yeah.
There's 3. Skip, is that where we're at?
No, not me. I'm still.
Well, that's the 3.
I think the Parks and Rec. I mean, Randy, help me out here as far as what you were saying, because I think what you were saying is this Parks and Rec position would report to the ACM. And the economic development would have baseball and tennis under it.
That's not as much my concern as this. The person that is responsible for economic development has to have their heart, mind, and soul on economic development. I think that baseball and tennis are tremendous economic generators, and I've got no issue with that part of it. I think that that's what I call one of our niches, and our niche needs to be capitalized on. My concern gets into the fact that as a department director over a big department, and I wouldn't recommend, even though I think he's great, I wouldn't recommend putting economic development in public works, even though transportation's a major driver. I mean, because those are different functions to me. But the person who does this has to have their focus on that and can't be concerned with getting a Parks and Recreation accreditation, which I think is a great thing. I think it's great for the organization. They can't be concerned with the maintenance of a particular park or have involvement with this parade or this particular event, because I think that's going to detract from other things which, in my view, are more important to genning the economic development activities of the city.
That's
No, I forget.
What was your question?
I'd say that we go 2 divisions, 1 manager, or 1 director.
I do too. I think it's done all the time. That's done all the time. That's what directors do. They manage different
Closely
functions.
associated.
Yes, they are. Skip's saying they're very closely related. I agree. So it's if we're going to consolidate, that would be a place to consolidate closely related departments, and I think they are, and I think we should consolidate them.
You got 4.
You got 4? Skip, are you in on this?
Skip, Skip. He's the chipmunk who's peeking his head up.
oh man.
I totally disagree. I think Mark can be a tremendous asset for economic development, but I don't think he needs to take over it. I think he can assist.
Well, he can for a year. What do we have?
We'll take a break.
I mean, I gotta. We hired Randy as city manager because he's got a lot of depth. He's smart as a whip, and he's been around a lot of organizations. And I have to defer to his thinking. On this. I really do.
Here's what I'm wondering if this is going on, and this is a terrible place to have to ask this question, but is this that you really think that recreational services and economic development are so closely related that they need to be directed by one person, or are you just not happy with economic development?
Well, back to the way the city's been set up historically, with bringing in baseball, and then and Joe being the driver behind tennis, which I think was great, and I think that's going to be another great asset for the city. Except that when you look at campus operations, it's costing the general fund a lot of money, and we're okay with that if we were going to get economic development and get jobs and all the rest of it. So that's where I'm coming from, Lynn.
Okay, here's where I'm coming from, and I've intentionally held off on this one, is I think that recreational service is doing a great job, and that we need to be really careful about doing anything that may negatively impact that. I think just on the basis of having this discussion, there's been a very strong message that's been sent about a concern, and that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Now, am I wrong on that? Are you guys concerned about?
Oh, it's just that, I know that Mark's, and again, this is personalities, and we're not supposed to do that. I know that there are people within the organization that can close deals and go out and get the deals and close them. And that person is very well connected. if this doesn't go, if this reorganization doesn't go in this little bit of area, I would like to put on notice the economic development through Randy, and that is we got to get some stuff sticking to the wall. We have to go out and do a better job of going out and getting businesses to come in here rather than waiting for businesses to knock on our door.
Okay. Here's my caution. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty here. I think we're treading, we're going places maybe we need to be really careful. And I'd suggest that we don't make this change. And we have sent a message. Apparently, we want to, not apparently, I too want to see us get some deals here through economic development. I'm not certain that this is a good move.
Okay.
And so, 1, 2, 3, let's see. Where are you?
I'm willing.
Once again, you're on the bubble.
Well, if we did it, I'd want baseball and tennis and economic development together, and Parks and Rec, the rest of the services reporting up the line, however Randy wanted to organize it. But I agree, it's the other thing is then let's not do anything right now. Okay, that's where I'm at.
I think that would be the wise thing to do, frankly.
And I am willing to say that. Okay, and we definitely look at this throughout the year, and we ask that, Randy, that the economic development works with Parks and Rec a lot more than we have in the past, see how we can bring it synchronize both those departments and use the same synergy from both departments. And I'm willing to back off for a year.
Okay, I think that concludes the discussion on that particular position. Is there anything else? Talking positions right now, are there any other positions within the organization that, from a policy setting standpoint, you want to have a discussion on?
I just have one, not whether or not we need the position, but where the position is located, and I talked to Randy about this a little bit. We discussed the importance of risk management in the city, but right now it's just out there floating on its own. I think it either should be under HR or it should be under legal. I don't think it should be out there on its own. It's over. I think it's in management and budget or finance or something like that.
Management budget right now.
I don't see the logic behind that structure.
As in the department overviews yesterday, the two departments that we stated was currently undergoing reorganization and review was finance and management and budget. With the elimination of the management and budget department, there's overlap between those. We've already made the decision with purchasing. That was a pretty clear-cut decision. We're still looking at the budget function and the risk management function as to where it really does go.
Well,
there is definitely overlap with the attorney's office. There's overlap with the human resources department. There's also overlap with the finance department because it is managing a fund of over $1 million that we have in retention, and there's a lot of just financial portions of it. So that is one of the things that we are absolutely looking at as we move forward to make sure that the organization structure.
And risk management has pretty much, I think, that function, if we all agree, involves a lot of the lawsuits against the city.
But that's a very minor part of the function.
Okay, what else then?
Well, let me tell you why I say that's a minor part of the function. If a risk manager does their job correctly, there won't be any losses. Now, we all know that's not realistic. But what they need to be doing, and I can't, Doug can go into more detail, but, this is one that floats between, because you've got the, workers' comp claims, which clearly that's an HR thing. You've got the auto property casualty claims, the police type claims that you get. So those are different. But the risk manager should be looking to safety as being a primary concern, making sure that you have a safe environment, that the proper trainings going on vehicles are done, and the actual claim settlement part is a very minor part of this particular job, particularly due to the fact that we're 100% insured.
Well, we have a safety person there. Okay, so, but what I'm saying is the risk manager looks at you nailed it. They look at all the claims. Claims deal with legal and losses to the city. So I don't know. Most of the time it's either under HR or it's under legal. in other cities, it just doesn't, it's not under finance or it's not under safety.
Now, I've seen it under finance a lot.
So I don't know. I just think it belongs more toward legal or HR. That's just my thoughts, but I saw it out there in finance. I'm like, why is it in finance? But as far as the functions of it, Randy, I agree. We need somebody here for it. But where it reports to is sort of, I didn't see the logic there, but I just had a question on that too.
Any other questions?
Yeah, clarification. The deputy city manager has been eliminated? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
That position, there was one created in community initiatives, is that correct, Randy?
Community development.
Community development.
Okay.
And I guess the consensus that I kind of heard last night is that the function's going to go to Mr. Bailey's office with community development providing the assist.
Right.
But that Mr. Bailey will take the lead on negotiating development agreements.
Well, was there any other duties involved other than
There
development agreements?
There are, and I don't think that Mr. Mahalik, with the staff reductions that we've done, is going to be able to provide the assistance that's going to be needed in this particular function, and I think it's going to put a lot of strain on Mr. Bailey and his office.
And I think that, I don't think I know that we discussed that and agreed that we're going to put that position under legal, and if it creates
The activity.
that we're going to put the activity of development agreement coordination under legal, coordinating with Jeff, the director, and that's the way it's going to be for now.
I don't agree with it. just
You
for
didn't
the
agree
record.
with it before.
Well, I need to understand,
But there were 5 to
because the
2.
way that I heard this is that Cindy Cohen then would go to Mr. Bailey to
Backup.
as the backup, and he would take the lead, and he's got the resources at that particular point. I mean, Mr. Mahalik would be taking the function with no resources, and I don't see that being successful.
You
but-
unable to take that function?
We're prepared for the direction of the council. I mean, we're prepared to handle these. I just want to make sure there's just a full understanding of how it moves forward, but we're prepared to take it.
You can do it. Okay. And we had a 5-2 already, Roy. So
Well, I just wanted clarification on it, that's all.
okay. Any other positions? Okay, let's go back to the budget if there's any questions. I have one. For me, it's not crystal clear. There was a 300 last night. I believe that we instructed staff to set aside $500,000 in asset preservation for community recreation services. And then in the process of a discussion that I heard this morning, that got reduced to 345, or somebody suggested that it'd be 345. Well, before we discuss that, I would like a point of clarification from Mr. Coronado. I believe last night you indicated that by a certain date certain, there needed to be X number of dollars invested in this stadium complex for improvements, asset maintenance and preservation.
We have Mayor, members of council, we have approximately $1 million in the asset replacement plan that functions in 2 areas, park maintenance and the recreation campus as a whole. I think what was presented this morning is that the city manager and ACM Sandstrom asked us to come up with a difference in what is projected in our revenues and what we estimate our revenues to be at the end of the fiscal year. We came up with a number of $345,000. So whatever the council deems appropriate with respect to a number, we will prioritize. If it's 500,000.
I didn't ask, pardon me.
Then I didn't
ask
understand your
about the
question.
number. I asked you for an explanation of something you said last night, was that there is an agreement with the stadium or with the teams or with the TSA that we have X amount of dollars invested. You said 21 million, or does anybody remember that?
No, the comment that I made is that I was trying to explain the philosophy of asset replacement. With asset replacement in some municipalities, and I use Florida as an example, that they discontinued asset replacement dollars in their process because of situations just like this, budget cuts and priorities. And that's why you've seen a lot of the teams migrate to Arizona. What the Stadium and Tourism Authority has done because of that has, with the car rental tax, has put together a process that for Surprise will generate approximately $20 to $23 million in 2023 for us to do as we please, whether we change out our seats, we build new concession stands, we buy a new scoreboard, whether we enlarge our clubhouse, which I can deem that for us to renegotiate with the Rangers or Royals or any team. Clubhouses now are 32,000 square feet at Surprise. The Dodgers, the Indians are getting 45,000 square foot clubhouses. So that'll probably be a piece of it. So in 2023, we have those dollars coming to our city.
Okay.
What we need to be careful about and cognizant about is if we do not have a progressive, consistent asset replacement fund, when 2023 rolls around, you will not have those dollars to make the improvements. You will put that money back into doing what you should have been doing for 15 years, taking care of fields, fixing fences, windscreens, and all of the day-to-day improvements that are required so that we're not in 2023 having to use that dollar to improve the facility so we can get it back up to what we call Major League standards. Does that make sense?
Thanks for that explanation. It's my recommendation that we stick with the $500,000 in asset preservation, and that we've eliminated a position, so that's going to clear, so that'll more than cover that additional from the 345. So we make it, my recommendation is that we make it 500,000. If we have to revisit the 500,000 mid-year based on new budget information, and it turns out that has to that we need it for operations or maintenance primarily, then maybe we can look at that time. But right now, 500,000 for asset preservation. Okay. Any comments?
Well, I guess I'm the keeper of the arithmetic. If we eliminate the ACM position, okay, we decrease the single-family permits to 260 by the $260,000 in the general fund. We eliminate the development agreement position 118.5, which is on the sheet in front of you. Add the 2 CRS employees at 110. That means that we have added $72,200 to the operating budget, $72,200, and then you've got $500,000 down at the bottom that's been changed to $345. So to get to the 500, we've got to add 155 back. So the bottom line is we are out of balance $227,200.
Is it good?
No. Shortfall.
How much did you say?
$227,200.
And you're including an assistant city manager in there?
No, I deleted an assistant city manager.
And
I added to the column as a bracketed number 179,300 or 180.
Okay.
Okay.
We're still how many short?
Already included.
180 for round numbers. So
So,
Oh, short arrow.
pardon me?
Oh, short arrow.
You're saying that we're $227,000 short if we do
Short.
if we do 500?
that's correct. Based upon the numbers that are on this sheet.
And
I got a proposal. If we move the single-family permits up to 400, we pick back up a portion of that.
But we're not being
They were going to
realistic.
recommend
Yeah, but-
450. How about compromise in the middle?
We have to be if we're going to err, let's err on the conservative side.
That's still conservative, but what they were going to recommend at 450.
Well, the ultra-conservative is 250.
No, 350.
Or 350.
350.
Based on 10 months linear, we would finish this year at 338. Now that makes us an assumption of linear distribution on permits, which that's not a good assumption. I mean, they've gone everywhere from a handful to 20. So
Do we know of anything that's going to come in that's going to be large? Does community development know anything in the wings that is going to happen in this next fiscal year?
well, the one thing is the one that, and I've told Councilmember Johnson this, the one that concerns me more than the single-family residential, frankly, is the commercial. Okay, we've reduced that to 500. I know of one that's going to be coming in of about 60, 80,000. Okay, now that's one, and it should happen either the end of this year or shortly into next year. On single family, it's not really predictable.
Okay, then, let's see. Taking into account that money that you were just talking about, perhaps what we do is for right now to balance the budget, we leave it at 345. We take a look at it in 6 months or so, or 9 months, and we have some options. I don't think it's wise for us to go spending council contingency before we've even moved into the year. So I think we should leave that. There might be some reasons we need that money. So we'll keep it at 345.
This is the accountant in me coming out. If you leave it at 345, you've still got a shortfall of 72.2.
Didn't you just mention that there was 68? You thought there was 68,000 coming in?
No. The 60 to 80,000 square feet of commercial construction permitting that I have pretty great certainty is going to occur.
Let's move the restoration down to 225 for now.
225?
If we put the reserve for whatever it's called.
Asset replacement.
Well, you can reduce it from 345, you could reduce it 72.2.
That's not going to do it.
And then that works. This is a numbers game, frankly, at this point, as to how you get the numbers. But if you decrease the asset replacement account to 272,800, then you're in balance on the operating side. And that 272,800 would not be available, however, until the Parks and Rec fees went above what Jared had originally budgeted, because we think that increase, but Mark may have a better handle on this, we think that what's projected in fee revenue is a little aggressive.
Okay, I think it seems to me that it's going to be pretty simple we're there.
Okay, we'll go to 272.8. Okay, now on the capital side then, do you want to back out the 336 and put the rest of it in pavement management? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what we will do is 336,100 into pavement management, then we will put 463,900. Let me just double check my arithmetic. Yep, we'll put 463,900, recognizing that 800 will be wrong. I can assure you that.
800.
The $800,000 carry forward from the end of this year.
Okay.
Could be 1.2, right?
No. We believe conservatively that's a good number. We believe it'll be higher than that. Okay, but I can guarantee you it won't be that exact number.
Right.
Because there's just no way we can forecast what our balance is going to be at the end of the year now.
May I make a suggestion right now? That if there is surplus above that, Randy, that it gets put into asset replacement? Are we good with that, Council?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's consensus there, I think.
And the only other caveat that I would make, that this assumes that the state shared revenue formula does not change, because the budget's going to require total redo if they change that distribution formula, and it will be brutal.
Do you have a plan for that?
I have a 10% reduction plan for that, and it is brutal. But I have a 10% reduction plan. If they do more than 10%, I don't know the answer.
Okay, I think we're settled on that. Are there any other budgetary issues that council would like to discuss, or any subjects you'd like to bring up related to the budget?
I had a note here that we're adding back 4 positions back into Parks and Rec, but we're just adding 2. Why did I write down 4?
4 were originally eliminated, and I thought we were bringing those back.
All we put back was 2. If you want to add back 4, then it's again
2 worker levels. Yeah,
we put back just the worker levels. We didn't put back the manager positions.
No. Okay, well, maybe I just made a mistake. That's okay.
Before I close the meeting, a couple things. One is we pre-ordered lunch, thinking that we would be here for lunch. I tried to cancel the lunch, but the lunch has already been delivered, so we have lunch 9:45. So what I'm going to suggest is that everybody grab a sandwich or two, take home, and before you go. Final closing statement. I think this has been a good budgetary process. Council, I believe, has been extremely consistent throughout the year. We've complimented our directors. We talk a lot about recreational services, and that's because they've done a great job, and they're getting support because they deliver. We've talked about public works. They've done a great job. They're getting support because they've delivered. I think I speak for all the council when we say our number one priority is public safety, fire and police. We want to take care of our community and make sure that they're safe. And number two is public works. We have to provide services to them, water, sewer, trash. And so public works is important to us. Number three is quality of life. Besides being able to survive, we want to survive in a community that is a good community, and where we can have places to go to and recreation and entertainment opportunities. This council strongly believes and supports our staff, and we want them to know that we believe every one of them, and the directors, but especially the managers. There's a lot of great managers out there that are just doing a wonderful job throughout this organization, and we support them. And you've heard very clearly that we support the workers that are out there on the streets, that are keeping the streets clean, and that are mowing the grass and trimming the bushes, and that are really working to make Surprise a special place. So on behalf of the entire council, I want to thank every employee in the city of Surprise. I want to thank you, council, for participating in this process. Thank management. This meeting is adjourned.
Mayor, we have on the agenda public comments.
I'm sorry.
One comment before we get there. Obviously, Monday, then, I will issue, based on what council's direction was, the reduction in force notices, and those reduction in force absent council give me different direction will be done in accordance with the policy that we've adopted, where they would get 2 weeks of pay and then 1 week per year up to 10 years of service.
Sure. And I didn't have an agenda. Thanks for reminding me. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
Wait a minute. No, wait a minute.
We've got lunch. We've got lunch. No, go ahead. Do you have something you'd like to say, Mr. Woodard?
Have you ever known me not to have something?
Is it on?
One of the things that compliment the council on it, it's been a tough 12 hours or whatever it's been. But one of the things that, Mayor, that you mentioned a few minutes ago is quality of life. One of the areas that you have touched that is very close to my heart and in my mind, and that's the seniors program. When you reduce staff time, when you reduce meal programs, you may as well reduce the other programs, because you're making it very, very difficult for those people in our community that are the most susceptible, and I'm sorry for that. So in that regard, I have to disagree with the decisions that you made. But I also understand that there's a lot of decisions that you have to make and you don't always like. That's one that is very close to me. I was here in January speaking about a problem that we had with transportation drivers. Well, we've got that, so now we've got lots of drivers, but will we have the people to where we need them? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Long pause. Meeting adjourned.
We'll bring this back. Have it for the next agenda. I would hope so. I think we can. Can't we, Jared? Yeah, we'll have it for the next agenda, so we'll have the budget approval on the next agenda.